You do worry that you might fluff your lines or drop your order of service or have a wardrobe malfunction. There are all sorts of things that could go wrong, but fortunately, none of them happened in the event. So there's a certain amount of relief when it all comes together and there aren't any serious mishaps.
Dean of the Chapel Royal and Dean of the Order of the Thistle, and he was right at the heart of King Charles's Scottish coronation on Wednesday. Good evening to you, Professor.
Good evening. Nice to be with you tonight.
Well, I'm honoured to have you on the programme. And you organised this magnificent service. Just backtracking before this week's event, how long did it take you?
We've been preparing the service over several months, and we significantly ramped up the preparations after the coronation. So it's been quite intensive over the last few weeks. But we've had an eye on this service for some time, certainly since the death of the late Queen. And it has been a lot of work, particularly in recent weeks, pulling together the various moving parts of the service.
Well, let me take you back to the weekend then. And, as the big day approached, I should imagine you were feeling a little bit nervous, were you? I just wonder how you prepare for something as momentous as this.
Yes, I mean, there's always a certain amount of anxiety, particularly with so many participants and elements to a service like this. It's not something that we've done very often. Well, it's 70 years since the last one in Scotland. So we were anxious about the length, about how the different parts would coalesce. But I felt a lot better after we had two rehearsals on Monday evening. We ran through the whole service twice in quick succession, and it became clear at that point that it was going to work in terms of both length and content.
So nothing went wrong in the rehearsals, because that's always a sort of long tradition, isn't it, that things sort of slightly go awry in the rehearsals.
Yeah, we had a few choreographical problems during the rehearsals. People, including myself, coming in at the wrong time, and we had to work at that. It was important not to have too many pauses in the service. It had to flow smoothly. We were also anxious that it might run over time. The BBC were only there for a limited period of time, and we had a flyover at 3:45, I think. So we had to make sure that the King and the Queen were out before then and down to Holyrood in time to watch the flyover.
Oh, it sounds incredibly nerve-wracking. I mean, the night before the big day on Wednesday, did you get much sleep?
I slept not too badly. I think I woke up very early. You do sort of dream about it and wonder what it's going to be like on the day and what could possibly go wrong that you haven't thought of. But having rehearsed it and discussed it at length with colleagues in Buckingham Palace, Scottish Government, Church of Scotland, I was fairly confident that it was going to come together on Wednesday afternoon.
Well, it was funny because I spoke to the Archbishop of Canterbury just before the coronation, and he said he was having nightmares about dropping the crown. You said you were dreaming about it? Did you have any kind of weird and wonderful nightmares?
Yes, well, you do worry that you might fluff your lines or drop your order of service or have a wardrobe malfunction. There are all sorts of things that could go wrong, but fortunately, none of them happened in the event. So there's a certain amount of relief when it all comes together and there aren't any serious mishaps.
Well, and you, of course, were tasked with presenting the crown jewels to the king. I mean, describe that moment when you picked it up, and it must be a lump in the throat, I guess.
Yes, it was very moving. We had Catherine Granger carrying the swords, the Lord Justice Clerk, the sceptre, the Duke of Hamilton, the crown, and I was offering words of presentation at the end. So it was very moving to stand beside the King and the Queen and see the regalia being presented, especially the new Elizabeth sword, which had attracted a lot of media attention. You're concentrating very hard at the time on getting the job done properly that you maybe don't quite register as you do later when you start to rehearse it in your mind again.
Yeah, because I suppose there's the enormity of this, that this was first worn by James V in 1540, wasn't it? So you're so kind of, it's imbued with history, and there you are, part of history again.
Yes, the whole occasion was steeped in history. It was in the cathedral, which dates back to probably the 12th century. We had the medieval crown and sceptre. The Stone of Destiny was there, which it wasn't in 1953. It was still in Westminster Abbey at that time. So, as you say, it was steeped in history and full of resonances from centuries past.
And did you have any words with the king afterwards?
I didn't speak to him afterwards. I greeted him briefly at the door, and he asked me if I had prepared the service, which I said I had, along with others. I wasn't able to speak to him at the end. He was whisked away quite quickly to get back to Holyrood in time. I did speak briefly with the Duke and Duchess of Rothesay, as the Prince and Princess of Wales are known in Scotland, and they spoke to the clergy and expressed their appreciation for the service.
And when it was all over, did you feel a kind of immense sense of relief that there hadn't been a wardrobe malfunction, as you put it?
Yes, there was a sense of relief, as well as happiness that it had all come together. It was a very uplifting occasion, particularly with the music. We did have some protests in the background, but all in all, it was a successful occasion, and I was very pleased with how the service turned out.
In my intro, right at the start of the programme this afternoon, I imagined you sort of kicking back with a G&T now to just, the relief it's all over. Is that what you're doing?
I have a couple of beers in the fridge for this evening. Yes, you're almost right.
Right. Well, it sounds like you've deserved it, but it must have been. I mean, when you said you don't realise until afterwards, when you're thinking back over it, the enormity of it all. What is the single thing that stands out in your mind that sort of resonates most for you?
There were different highlights in the service for me. I'm not sure what will remain most vividly in the memory. I think probably just standing beside the King and the Queen when they received these honours, and the King offered his response to the people. That was a very moving moment, and it's not one that I will experience again. So that will stay with me for a long time.
Professor David Fergusson, thank you very much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
The very Reverend Professor David Fergusson, Dean of the Chapel Royal, who presented King Charles with the Crown Jewels, the Honours of Scotland, this week.